Yo, yo, yo. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the stream. We're going to talk about Conor McGregor and Tucker Carlson and their interview that they had just a few hours ago and shoot the breeze a little bit. I want to talk about some other stuff too. It's been a while, so I'll catch up on some thoughts I've been having with you and the rest of it. Give me a sound check there as well, anybody who's hanging out, just so I know I'm good. Yeah, so I want to talk about the interview about McGregor in general and kind of the recent goings on with him, you know, going to the White House, Mr. Ireland, all that kind of stuff. He's kind of like the flag bearer for kind of right-wing nationalism in Ireland, relating to the Trump administration and all that kind of stuff. But thanks for the sound check, lads. But so there was Conor in the White House. There was Tucker in the Black Forge a couple of days ago, and now there's this as well. I thought it was good. I thought the interview was pretty good. Hi, Kelly, especially. How are you getting on? It was good. I wonder how much it breaks through to because people say this is going to rock the world, like rock Ireland, you know, and all of that. And I don't know how much it is. I don't know what breaks through to the so-called normie kind of media diet, what they get. Maybe I'll ask some people over the weekend, but I don't know. Is it just people online seeing it, or does it get through to, you know, like the people who watch the Late Late Show and stuff? How much wind are they going to get of this? Happy Easter as well to everybody, of course. I don't know if I should even be streaming on Good Friday, but here I am. Yeah, I don't know. I was going to watch the video as well, just kind of live react to it. But County Gaines there on X was telling me that he's tried to do it before and it gets banned. So, and I was also kind of thinking there's not much use in just sitting down and watching it, you know, plodding my way through it with you, because chances are you've already seen it. So I might just watch some clips on Twitter. But yeah, anyway, there's so much going on that, like, you know, there's all this stuff to do with Garen on TikTok lately. There's so much kind of happening in Ireland at the moment. In a way, I should be streaming more often, but I want to catch up on some of it tonight anyway. So the McGregor interview, I'm leading there with the whole point of, like, what's the, like, is it like shaking up someone says, where have I been? Nowhere in particular, just I find it hard to get around to streaming. I don't know, should I be interrupting myself like this with the chat? But I will anyway. I just two kids, and I don't know. I just find I don't naturally. It's like with kids, when you're with them in the evening, as you've asked, I'll tell you. When you're with them in the evening and they're sort of chaotic toddlers, and you know you've your life to live, you've to get your stuff ready, you know, live your life, do your thing. I find that when it gets to potential streaming time, it could be, and this isn't much of an excuse, but when it gets to be 9:30 or whatever, and you could probably relate to this, you kind of just want to sit down, and I kind of want to sit down and listen to a stream or watch something or whatever, or scroll Twitter. I'm like, you know, kind of tired, and it's that time of evening. And it could just be hard to get into the swing of just sitting down and streaming. I don't know. I think it's, for what it's worth, as you asked, I think it's one of those things that when you do it frequently, it's chill. But when you're not used to doing it, you feel awkward having to sit down and do it, and you just put it off, because it's not natural to sit in a room by yourself talking to a screen. And especially then if people are watching you, all the rest of it, which kind of relates to the Conor thing, actually, because I was watching it from a perspective of like his kind of performance as talking about it, talking his thing. I know the crack. I know Ireland is being genocided, ethnically cleansed. I know it all, right? Obviously, and most of you do. So I'm not going to have my mind blown with the ideas. But I'm just interested in how he'll do, you know, and you know, as it relates to what I'm saying about even live streaming or something, it's one of the things people don't get about, let's say, someone like Conor McGregor, when and this is kind of in his to his credit, I think I have a lot of respect for him for. He's polarizing and people have their views on him. But one thing I definitely respect him for is the ability to show up, let's say, under the bright lights, regardless of what you think about him as a personality or politics. Like the ability, whether it's UFC fights or showing up at the White House or speaking to Tucker Carlson, I think people underestimate is that most of us throughout the day will have like ups and downs energy wise. You have worries, anxiety, concerns, you're hungry, you're sick, you have a headache, whatever. And most of us are kind of laden down with this kind of like energy roller coaster ride we're on. And it's a natural tendency for all human beings is to be a bit sort of anxious and just feel a bit off. And certainly that doesn't match well with having to sit down and do these things, show up at the White House with all the cameras going, all the pressure, everything that's going to come with it, and sort of perform, to be on, to be switched on. And that's not an easy thing. So I was kind of watching it almost from that perspective. And I think he did pretty well, to be honest. But I'm just impressed by that. It's a thing. I think it's when you're like a media consumer, you underestimate that when you're watching it, that these are real people with real physical bodies and, you know, sort of dispositions and stuff like that. And these people who you regularly see turn up and show up, it's not easy to do that, you know, because they're just like you and me, and they've all the same baggage that we all do, and yet they're always at it. So yeah, the other thing about it too, like just to kind of almost conclude on what I thought of it to start with, is like he's not, and people, there's so much to say on McGregor. I'll just go with it. Like I don't think he excels at the sort of presidential thing, and of course that's what he has to do because that's kind of the framework he's going with, being like this big statesman, being all serious about the issues and grave about the matter of, you know, immigration and everything that's going on. It's sort of not really his thing, and I think he's better just being himself. You'll notice that I found anyway that when he was sort of speaking on the big issues, trying to come up with something to say, trying to have gravitas on the whole thing, it was grand. There's nothing wrong with it. But when he started to sort of let out the odd curse word and flow and get very Dublin accenty and start saying yous and all that, and his sort of a natural self came out, I think it's kind of better. And he kind of talked about the era of politicians is over, and it's kind of to that point where when you're trying to act like a politician, it sort of can come across weird, but when you're just yourself, it's more natural. And I think he comes across better the more he leans towards being himself and gets comfortable. He seems more engaging, authentic, free-flowing kind of speaking and all of that. And that suits him. Whereas if you look at someone like Simon Harris, he's best suited to the bullshit and the umming and ahhing and the fake way of speaking and the furrowed brow and all that. That suits him. We have no idea what Simon Harris, if there is such a thing, a real version of him would be. If he was just being straight up real, no bullshit, I'm just being myself. And I think that's a trait that is to McGregor's credit as well, is that his authentic side is his better side, which is just a virtue, I think. So there was that. There's also kind of the crossroads as well at the moment of, like, you know, when he's being asked what's going to happen, he doesn't have specific answers. Like, people are going, Americans love to ask him when he's running for president and all that. And he kind of admitted in this interview that, well, look, the road is kind of blocked for me. You need 4 councils and you need the Oireachtas and all this backing, and I'm pretty much not going to get it, which was, I don't know if that was is that a new thing that he's kind of said that? Because there's a certain pressure from I'm reading your chats here, all the different opinions. It's kind of, you know, anyway, I could respond to all of them, but like, you know, he the road is blocked for the presidency pretty much, and what Americans want to hear. They want to hear simple memes, which is that you're going to run for a president like Donald Trump, because that's their understanding of a president. And American politics has its own hurdles, but it's it's not like with us. Tucker's kind of angling at like, well, what else is going to happen? What are you going to do? What comes next and all that? And in a sense, he's kind of going, like, he's giving positive cliches, like, oh, we're going to move forward and this and that and the other, but there are no specifics. And that's kind of just something that's true, in my opinion. Like, none of us know what to do with this situation, whether to form another political party, another micro party, whether to do more awareness raising, whatever. It's a little bit of a difficult situation because, again, as Conor McGregor said, most Irish people behind closed doors kind of know what's going on and they're kind of against it, but there's no forum, or there's not much of a forum for people to, in real life, to sort of get together, to spread their ideas, to talk to each other, to communicate. You have X, you have some online stuff. It's a little bit siloed. But other than that, we're all just sitting in our gaffs. You're sitting in your house now with me on the phone or your computer. I'm here doing this. We're just sort of like isolated nodes. And we're the ones who are watching, doing, or listening to a live stream, or, commenting online. Other people, the majority of people, are less than that. They're just at home. They're not even engaging in it politically. So it's not that they're against the ideas that Conor McGregor is talking about in particular. It's just that they're not activated. They're not mobilized. They have nothing to grab onto. And people have all sorts of comments on why that is and what could be done or whatever. But that is kind of the way it is. People speak about it like it's a failure of the right wing to get their shit together. And that's probably true to an extent. But it's also just downstream from state top-down pressures. It's kind of hard to do. It's been made this way intentionally. There's, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael don't get in because they're just such slick operators or whatever. It's obviously kind of like China or whatever, or any other country. It's just kind of established and top-down. They don't give us a vote on immigration. They don't let you speak about these things without getting harassed in some way. They make it so that you have to worry about being fired from your job. Something as simple as all the anonymous, most of you anonymous in the chat, most of people on X are anonymous. They're anonymous for a reason. Even the ones who are reasonable and don't use foul language and stuff are anonymous because they're afraid. So it's like, these factors are just kind of locked in, and it's hard to know what to do with it or whatever. But someone here in the chat says it's now mainstream. That's the weird irony, is that now it is mainstream. The idea that we're being replaced, ethnically cleansed, that these people are like, it's, the whole crack is sort of understood by a lot of people. Like, half of the people I talk to, if I ever broach this with them or like, nudge the conversation in that direction, they fully know what's going on. Everyone gets it. And I might talk about TikTok in a while. It's kind of been a little, what's the word? Discourse on immigration on TikTok, Irish TikTok, in the last few months. But it's, it's one of those things that's hard to know kind of where to go with it. And he finds himself in this position of being this mascot, with a lot of eyes on from America, and then a lot of consternation within Ireland. Like, he's had his name blackened in the last while. Some people argue he's done that to himself with his actions. Other people will say it's a hit job, smear job, whatever, a mix of both. He's been through the mill a bit in Ireland, which is kind of inevitable in a way when you broach topics like this. And so he's in a strange position, but he did kind of say that I found it kind of endearing, to be honest. The fact that he someone here says, you tarnish your agenda by propping the likes of McGregor. Yeah, I don't know. I have a more nuanced take on that. I saw Irish Gate was excoriating him. I like Irish Gate. He had a point, as always. There's usually a point from every side. Every side has some element of a point. But I just have a more nuanced thing, and I just have a tendency to kind of like him overall. on balance. But what I was saying is that like he doesn't necessarily have the answers. He kind of admits that the road to presidency is blocked, but he just kind of he settles with, I'm here to do whatever it is. And so he's in a sense looking for guidance and looking for a path, but also is happy to just do whatever he can do, which is useful in general. And of course, he does have a role one way or another. One of the things that Tucker Carlson and Conor both mentioned was rich Irish Americans. Conor referred himself to being rich himself. I've got endless money. I've got what was it he said? Infinite. His funds are infinite, he said. And the idea of getting Irish American support, of course, 40 odd million Irish Americans. I don't know how that would manifest, how much of a well that is to tap into, but of course, the people who are pushing, let's say, mass immigration and all that stuff in Ireland are funded out their arses with state and corporate money. So there's nothing wrong with having your thing funded. So I don't know if he plugs into the American thing. I know, there's probably, let's say, movement happening behind the scenes. There could be, perhaps, I don't know, but there could be movements happening to get funding into the Irish right, potentially. I'm speculating, I don't know. And that would be definitely positive. Like, people don't realize that, and you've great things going on at the moment. You have Michael McCarthy on TikTok, you have Nick Delahanty doing his thing. All this stuff is great. And I don't know how they're doing, how much kind of the financial model works with like TikTok, and these things can be kind of difficult to make an income even if you're doing well and kind of successful. But you do need funding for sure. And that's not cheap. If I had my way, like, you could burn through 1 million easily. Because in dissident circles, people think you should work for free, and any money you have should go towards like posters or advertising campaigns or whatever. And I definitely disagree with that. I think in theory, just like NGOs or anything else, people who work hard at what they're doing should be remunerated with a wage, and not like a little cursory wage, a proper wage, a professional wage. And to me, these days with inflation, a professional proper wage, if you want someone to be doing long days, hardcore, high IQ work, I just think, it sounds like a lot, but I think a person who's doing that very effectively should be getting 100 grand. And some people might kind of laugh at that and go, that's loads of money. But it's like, no, 100 grand now is what like 50 grand was like 10 years ago. Secondly, a person who is working full time on nationalism, they have reputation destruction to contend with. They have a tax, they have all the rest of it. They should be able to probably keep a household on one income. That's probably important for them as well. So when you look at it that way, and if you were to have, let's say, in some organization, 5-10 good people working in it, and they need that salary year in, year out, they need it to be committed. Well, you're talking 100 grand. Suddenly you're working your way up to 1 million, €500,000 before you've even spent anything on any other sort of campaign expense or any of this other stuff. So, you kind of say, well, yeah, you would need millions just to have a good outfit going. People who can rent spaces, they can do this, they can do that, but also they need to be paid. They have to be paid. And that's just millions. And then NGOs would say, we have transcribed Gerald Murphy talking about needing millions to be. It's like, well, no, they all do as well. All these NASCs and whatever, they're not working for free. They have to live their lives. They have to do what they're doing. So the first thing is their wage. They need to be paid in order to fully commit themselves to what they're doing, 9 to 5 or whatever, more. So in order to have fully mobilized human resources, you have to pay people. And that money has to come from somewhere. And it can't just be a bunch of people trying to randomly put up GoFundMes or make TikToks or whatever it is. They just need to get paid. And that money needs to be sourced from somewhere above board, obviously, and all that. just like everybody else. And it's funny, people say, "Oh, how you know." That something almost sounds nefarious about that, but nobody says that about basically any other job or any other political advocacy or anything else. So it is actually totally normal. It's only in this world that we've sort of normalized this idea that everyone like is in it for the cause or whatever, and of course you expect people to be, but that's not going to pay the bills. So I suppose it is welcome to hear McGregor talking about that in a sense. If you just get some cash flow into the movement, we'll call it, that would be good. I just have some other random notes here. The reason being, I can't play the clips because I might get the stream taken down or something. So I don't know. He said he does it in spite of concern from his family, that even his mother would say, "Why bother with all this kind of stuff? You could just go away in the yacht." And again, that's another endearing point. And I've had this myself. I've experienced this in a smaller way. Stakes are much higher for him, obviously. That and the ability to just walk away from it is so much greater as well. I mean, like if you think of like his broken leg and all this kind of probably trauma and stuff he went through over the years, various things, ups and downs, roller coasters, making mistakes, doing great things, the whole ride, so to speak. It would be very easy to hit your mid-30s. You have your little rake of kids and just say, I'm just kind of going to step away from it all, consolidate my money and just go on the yacht and sort of keep my head down. I couldn't be bothered getting into all this stuff anymore. That would be very tempting. And he obviously could do that. And if you stick your head up on these issues, of course, everything you've ever done wrong, things you even haven't done wrong, all sorts of stuff will be held against you. You'll be sort of crucified. So, you know, you have to give him his dues on that, I would say. Even for the critics, even for people who have legit criticisms of him, I would say that he has to get credit for that, in fairness. Another thing is, and this sounds like a big ass kissing session or whatever. I'm not like a simp. I don't give a shit. Like, you know, I'm not looking for money off him or access or boosting or any of that kind of stuff. So whatever, I've no dog in the fight necessarily, but he said, and you could say it's a cliche or whatever, but he said he'd die for Ireland. But even if that's a cliche, maybe something you just say, it struck me that you would never hear the likes of that from the likes of Simon Harris or Micheál Martin. When was the last time you heard an Irish politician or could even envision them saying something like, I die for the country. I die for what's right and what's true and for the well-being of the overall people and all that. You know, so there's a level of authenticity there that I think would be definitely welcome. And that's one of the things among the criticisms and all that. I do feel like, and I've loads as well, the like connection to the Trump thing and all that. I feel like that's a bit off. I'm not a fan of that. And whatever, some people say, well, he comes with more baggage than he brings anything else or whatever. Some of that stuff's true, but I just happen to kind of like him. Just deleting some spammers there, but yeah, I just think he's sincere. It's one of those things. It's a matter of, it's a subjective thing, but I just do. I've kind of kept an eye on him for years, and he's always had a toe in the camp of like this sort of nationalist sentiment. He didn't just come up with it in the last year to sort of find a political refuge for himself or anything. Like, I've seen him talking about this for a long time. These are his genuine beliefs, and I think he does just kind of care about them and want to do something useful for it. So I feel like that's to his credit. There was the cars thing. So I don't know what you made of that when he started talking about cars. I don't know if you caught that. I assume we've all seen it. Could I play clips or whatever here? Maybe. I'm just going to have a look here, see if I can share some stuff. Yeah, he... what was the quote? He said, like, speed cameras and NCTs and all that are driving people to suicide. And it was kind of a strange digression, and people could haul him up in that and say that's a strange thing to say. That's a fact check, not true, or whatever. But I actually thought it was kind of getting at something that's sort of true. Is that you have with people now, let's say with their cars, you have to do your NCT, you have to do your insurance, you have to do your tax. When you do your NCT, you have to do your repairs, all the rest of it, and that would be fine. Let's take the NCT as an example. I like the idea of having an NCT every year because or every whenever it is, because your car is safe. It's a good way of getting it a once over and all that kind of stuff. And it's a feature of a modern society. You don't have to get an NCT, I imagine, in Bangladesh or something like that. But so it's an onerous imposition from the state, but in a sense it's good because we're in a modern first world country, and that's good to have cars that are up to snuff. The problem is with declining standards of living and people being driven into borderline poverty, is that into a more of a Bangladesh sort of a financial situation, is that it's all well and good to be like Norwegians with your up to scratch cars, but what about when not everybody, but a decent proportion of the population are now starting to get the sweats just to be able to pay for the insurance, the NCT, the fixes, whatever it is, at the fact that used cars, all cars have just gone through the roof in price. So even if you say, okay, I failed my NCT, I'll just get rid of that, it's got too many problems, I'll get a new old used car. Well, your car with 250,000 miles on the clock is still going to cost you $5,000 or whatever it is. The prices are crazy. So this occurred to me when I was getting my own NCT a few weeks ago. And I looked around the room and I saw a lot of nervous faces. And and probably my own, if I pulled up a mirror, I would have seen the same thing. But, there's something to that in a normal economy, in a normal sort of economy, society, if you have a test like that, you might look at a room of 20 people and maybe think maybe one person here is doing badly off enough, that they've fucked up enough, they haven't worked enough, they've had an unfortunate situation in their life, or a mix of these things or whatever, and they're a sort of remarkably, exceptionally poor person, very atypical. Just you're always going to have some people are a little bit, they're not keeping up or whatever, right? And that'd be one thing if you thought, oh, that person over there looks a bit poor, I wonder if they're struggling, it's a little old lady or something like that. But I think it's more likely now that if you go into your NCT center, at least half the people there are going to be biting their nails and sort of really thinking about it and thinking, shit, and that kind of changes the idea of being like a modern Swiss or Norwegian kind of country that gets cars done. It's like, yeah, that's all well and good to have that state imposition. But on the other hand, the state needs to provide a grounding for people that, oh, well, anybody, at least 99 out of 100 people can walk into this thing fine. And if they fail, if they pass, great. If they fail, they get fixes. If they fail bad and they need to get something new, they can get an old, run-of-the-mill car, secondhand. That'll be grand. Whereas you're going to have people who are trying to pay their bills up to their tits in debt, trying to do so, and just sinking every month with prices going up, groceries and everything, just shooting through the roof. And that's after paying a mortgage on a 600,000 euro semi-D or whatever, all the rest of it. Right? So you're looking at, his point about the NCT driving people to suicide and stuff like that. Some people might kind of laugh and say, oh, that's a bit outlandish or whatever, but there's sort of a bit of truth to it in a way. The other thing he mentioned was speeding fines or whatever. And so again, someone could say, what does he get? Wait, he's saying that it's like a national tragedy that people get speeding fines. So maybe you could say, okay, so he wants to burn down the M50 in his Lamborghini and he doesn't like the fact that he has to obey the law or something like that. But actually, again, I think it's another one of these things that with the same economic and financial aspects I just mentioned, and it actually is it's mad because it sounds a bit off the wall what he said, but in my view, there's a huge truth in it, whether it's accidental or not. And this always gets me, maybe you as well, is that, when you you go to the supermarket, right? I'll just give you my take. You go to the supermarket and you see a Roma gypsy, who we all love Roma gypsies, right? Sitting there with their cup, putting on the face, and you see some boomer get out of their, their 2025 car or whatever, and they walk over and they sort of look past you. This is my experience. Had this a few times. They kind of look through me. They've like no interest, no, they don't go, oh, there's a young man with his kid, or, good to see a young Irish fellow with his kid. He looks like he wouldn't do anything. He looks like he'd probably return a wallet to me if I lost it. He looks like a decent guy. Not that I want them to give me the money. I'm just saying that there'd be some sort of, they'd be like, hello, you, or whatever. But no, they don't really see you. They dart straight over to and this is just standard boomer hate, or not hate, but criticism. I have to put this in. So, and they go straight over to the gypsy with the cup and they pop the fiver in, and you can see the warm glow. Well, your man gives them a little smile or whatever for the thank you. And they go, thank you, or whatever. And then the boomer, you can see they light up Trocara style. Like they get that warm, fuzzy feeling of like, oh, aren't I great now? And you see that and you go Travis Bickle mode a little bit. Then you take your kid to the playground, let's say, and everyone in there is speaking either Ukrainian or something else, and they're all just chilling out with their families and stuff. And you kind of go, okay, so you see a lot of that, while a lot of Irish people are doing their commute and their kids are in daycare, which is massively destructive or whatever. And the ones who seem to get to be able to kind of loiter about with their kids are disproportionately like foreigners and stuff like that. And you see thing after thing like this, and it sort of gets you. And then you look at your bills, your this, your that, your everything, and you're kind of going, okay, so the goalpost keeps getting moved away from me no matter what I do. A lot of people will relate to this. All these kind of like Travis Bickle-y thoughts could be sort of building on you. And you could say, that's fine. That's no bother. I'll just keep being a good boy, keep playing by the rules, all these other sort of unfairnesses and vulgarities that you see around the place. And of course, it naturally makes you see Travis Bickle's style. But you go, I'm a good boy. I'll get my NCT. I'll this and all that, and I'll never ask for anything, and I'll whatever. And then you pass a speed camera and you get nabbed and you get your fine, or a guard pops out of a bush. I've had it a few times to me. And it's just the worst icing on the cake you could ever possibly fucking imagine, if I'm being honest with you. Like, it is actually one of the highest forms of tyranny you could possibly imagine. So Conor's talking to Tucker Carlson and he's mentioning this. And yes, it does seem a bit strange, but to me, there's actually a truth within it, where you go, yeah, you're talking about ethnic genocide of your people, you're talking about this and that, the economy or whatever, but actually hidden within that is what is a small thing, €100 fine or whatever it is, and it's a speeding ticket. It's pretty run-of-the-mill type of thing. It's actually a huge thing in the context of everything else, because when I talk about speeding tickets, I'm not talking about you're burning down some road at 140 kilometers an hour or whatever, small road. We're not talking about like you're a boy racer, you're going crazy, you're being a lunatic. This is you're being a fully grown, like brain fully developed, responsible person. You put your rubbish in the bin. If you find a wallet, you go to great pains to return it to the person. All that kind of stuff. You don't go around the place speeding. You don't recklessly drive. You're a very safe driver. And you tend to go at a naturally safe and responsible speed wherever you are. But they set up the camera in a trap zone, right? So basically, you know the story, right? So you're on 100 road or whatever, and it goes to 60, and you pass the sign. And regardless of speed cameras, you were basically in the process of slowing down. You were going to slow down 10, 20 meters down the road, begin slowing down or whatever. You were reasonable, but actually the guards just set up where the speed limits naturally are a bit off compared to how you would naturally drive based on how the road looks and what seems reasonable. And they find those places and they sit there and they trap you. And then there are many places where there are roads that are very dangerous. And where if you were to call them and say, hey, my kids go out this road and people come down it too fast, it's over the speed limit, and not only that, but it's just actually it genuinely is dangerous. It's not just technically a rule break. This is dangerous. Do you want to come down to that road and monitor it? They would laugh at you. They're like, we're not interested. They're not interested genuinely in applying their speed cameras to stop people or put the fear into people of going fast on certain areas. They don't care. It's just about literally another way to just hoover money out of your pocket. And of course, they're getting people who, like I say, the worried face people in the NCT. There's a lot of people who that €100 will be a massive deal to them. And that would be fine if they were going 140 down some medium-sized road. You'd say, look, it doesn't matter how poor you are. We got to protect people, and this is a disincentive to reckless speeding. That's fair enough. But this is basically just like some sort of Looney Tunes thing where there's some devious little character in a bush just trying to catch you out on something completely disconnected to public safety of any sort. The other thing too is that if it is someone who's like very wealthy, a millionaire, that's nothing to them. But if it's someone who's very poor, it's huge to them. That's also wrong. I think the fact that it's not like, I don't know, graded against you, what money you have or something like that. So I don't know. He mentioned that, and it is actually one of those injustices. And even the NCT, it's not an injustice. It's a good thing. I think it's important. I think any civilized country should probably have that. Cars are big, dangerous bits of heavy machinery. They should be. You don't want just wheels flying off or whatever. So I'm all for NCT, like a civilized modern country, but a civilized modern country has to have a sort of civilized and modern foundation. People need to have that economic comfort. At least 99% of people should be easily able to afford anything that comes with an NCT. And if they don't, then the state needs to, fuck off, basically. That's what I would say. But and the other thing as well is that, when the thing came out from your man on TikTok, the car dealership guy, about Ukrainians getting free car repairs, right? I felt like the whole response to that, everything they do is glib, but like the political establishment were so glib about that, and it's so serious, and it shows how unfeeling they are towards Irish people. Is that I believe it was Simon Harris kind of, and a few others of them, anyone in that kind of milieu, they sort of hand waved it away and said, oh, that's just additional needs payment. That's always existed. If you're very poor or whatever and you need a car, you need your shower fixed or whatever, and you're just too poor to afford it, then you can afford to show up. You can go apply for it, right? So it's not just Ukrainians, it's more complicated than that or whatever. And it's such a glib response because, first off, the additional needs payment for like a Irish person is one thing. They're on the dole, whether they're on it legitimately or not. That's a closed loop, right? Only so many people within a closed loop will be on the dole or can access it or whatever. But the idea that someone can walk into your country, they could maybe have a lot in bank accounts around the place. They have a whole other life in Ukraine. But they can kind of apply to the additional needs just because they already qualify just by virtue of their nationality. Whereas in Ireland, you would need to sort of prove it a bit more. I don't think it's necessarily means tested for these Ukrainians. So the idea that, like, to sort of strip away all that sort of technicality stuff, the idea basically that a Ukrainian who's pretty well to do, they have their house, they have their free college for their kids, they have all these programs, they probably get picked up in buses and brought here and there, and NGOs and various other things tripping over themselves to give them special little treats and goodies and accesses and all this kind of stuff. Whereas if you were like a middle class, like Irish person, there's no liaison officer, there's no goodie, there's no access, there's no benefit, nothing. You're just completely invisible. And if you take a Ukrainian person with a nice car, they're fairly well to do, they've got all their basics covered, and then they take their whatever it is, their Porsche Cayenne or whatever car they have, their BMW in, and they get a free like engine fix or replacement or something like that, and you're skating by just about and you don't get it. The idea that someone like Simon Harris would just kind of glibly wave it away, it's like, it's just whatever. It's like, no, that, like, do you realize how much €1,000 means to most people these days? Like, they have no concern for that. they really don't give a shit about that, about like the fact that some Irish person watches a Ukrainian go by. Let's hypothetically you say let's say you physically see the Ukrainian go in, just to paint a picture, and get their car done, and then you bring your car in, and you can barely afford it or whatever. Like the idea that someone like Simon Harris or Micheál Martin or any of the rest of them just hand wave that away, it's so callous. It's like, so you think that if I have a problem with that I have some chip on my shoulder, and that I am a hater, and that I whatever this, that, and the other, as in they don't empathize at all. They don't say, oh no, it's naturally you would be upset about that. Why wouldn't you be? It's hard to live like that. It's hard to get by and all that kind of stuff. So we understand that. It's not just, it's not fair. We get it. But no, not only do they not change the rules or apologize for the rule being that way, but they sort of say, they just hand wave it away and say, no, they basically say you're the cunt for, I don't know, am I allowed to say that, for having a problem with it, basically. And they sneer at you, which is just mental. The fact that they have that attitude towards so many hundreds of thousands of Irish people. So again, Conor's point about the cars thing seemed a bit of a weird tangent at the time, but I actually see a lot of truth in it. Yeah, the genocide of our people thing. So he's gone from saying that, like, you know, what is it, that Irish people in the White House, he said Irish people have become a minority overnight. They become a minority in one swoop in their towns. I couldn't have imagined that being said by any prominent figure, 5-10 years ago. So it's something we're kind of getting used to, the escalating rhetoric in the semi-mainstream now, if you can call Conor that. The idea that we're kind of getting, it's like passe now for someone like Conor McGregor, regardless of what you think of him. So whether you like him or don't, whether you think he's effective or useful or not or whatever, just you will admit that he's a big figure, right? The idea that a big figure can go on a big platform and just sort of say Irish people are being genocided by immigration and these policies, and it's almost passe. Like, we're not seeing it as that big of a deal. We've become used to that rhetoric semi-normalizing. That, I think that's obviously a good thing. People are talking about Serbs in the chat. Have I lost you that badly or what, lads? Jesus. But yeah. And then the other, yeah, I just said Banty noted there. Banty, what's his full title? Seamus. I forget his name. Banty. I was going to say the Mongolian, the Monaghan guy, the Gombeen of Monaghan. People like that, again, for whatever you'll say about Conor McGregor, they don't get their indiscretions exposed, and maybe he's a saint, right? But all these Gombeens, the other fella, Dave Mooney or whoever they are, these absolute like invertebrate, like scum, right? Who are absolutely destroying the country. Who like the guy in Dundrum who Nick Delahanty was talking about. All these different types of people, they get very little examination. There's no fine-tooth comb for them. There's no baby mamas. There's no affairs. There's no drug habits. There's no this, that, or the other. Seamus McEnany, thanks. There's none of that sort of comes out about them. I mean, like, you might have an article, or right-wingers are saying they're Gombeens and they're replacing the country and all that, but that's as far as it goes. If you go, yeah, but what about like, are they saints? No prostitutes, no cocaine, none of that. Like, really, that's these types of people. And I'm not pointing the finger at Banty or he might be a saint. I'm just saying these types of people more broadly, and these sort of like low-life businessmen, what would you call them, parasites, these wheeler-dealer types, Gombeens, that none of them there's no prostitutes, there's no cocaine, there's none of that. And I'm certainly not ascribing that to anyone specifically mentioned as a general commentary, right? But but no, there's no. It's like a black box. I mean, no one's looking at their life. There's nothing coming out. There's none of that. So when you talk about, oh, Conor McGregor's got all this baggage and this and that, it's kind of like, well, like, obviously there's a connection between the ire you provoke from the media and the regime in general, and the amount of dirt that gets thrown out on the table. That's just one of the things I've been thinking about a little bit for a while. And there's been other cases in the last few months of like right-wing figures having like supposed dirt thrown on the table, and people kind of getting into feast on it or whatever. And that's why, I don't know, the whole idea of like dismissing people because they have this or that, I'm reluctant to engage in, because my view on it is that we live in, look at the hole in my jumper. Wow, thanks, Matt. But that's meant to be there, isn't it? But yeah, like it's one of those things that we live in basically a panopticon, totalitarian sort of surveillance state or whatever, right? And the idea that that kind of ignominy or whatever writes people off. So anybody who rises up, anybody who sort of stands up, like, I don't know if you've seen Snowpiercer, the movie, on the train. If you have, you'll know what I mean. Anybody on the train carriage who kind of stands up from the huddled crowd and sort of approaches the authorities and questions them or leads people to rebel. The idea that any of them can be cut down with whatever improprieties, allegations, whatever, and their own supporters or sort of heed to that and say, oh, well, he's bad, so he's a moral failure, whatever. To me, it's just a tough one, because it's like the day that's in it, as Jesus Christ said about casting the first stone and all that. It's kind of like there's a value to that message, that you know, if everybody's how do because it's kind of like a reverse of that, so it's hard to kind of get the head around. It's like, if nobody is without sin, which is the case, then nobody can stand up, and that sort of message ripples around. That's how it is, and that's the standard. So it's like, basically only the saints among us are qualified to be dissidents, while we live in a totalitarian panopticon surveillance state. Like, do you see how that comes together and creates a sort of a situation where any kind of dissent is basically impossible forever? So to me, I'm sort of signing on to that sort of arrangement if I stand in judgment of this or that. And the other thing is, like I say about the panopticon, it's like the people who sit there and, let's say, judge, oh yeah, your man whatever, your man liked a picture on Instagram or whatever it is, or this or that or whatever, any of this kind of shit, right? Ranging from that to other bigger things or whatever. Anything that's meant to be some scandal on someone. It's like the question for the people, basically my thing is that when everyone's this is just for like when someone like Conor was getting hung out a few months ago or whatever, I would say it's like, and some people might pass the test, and if they do, great, but it's like, let's take every person you've engaged in a project or business with in your life, successful and otherwise, every relationship you've ever had, down to your girlfriend when you were 12, whatever, your entire internet history, which is recorded, that goes all the way since the first time you sat down and set up a Google account or something when you were 14, right? Every keystroke you've ever made is down, documented, filed away. That's just a fact for everybody. Until every person in the world has all of that, a full sort of oracle of your entire life, and the internet, which is basically, in a sense, every thought you've ever had, until that for every person is made open source to the whole world, and we can all just sort of peer into each other's entire existences, then we can all sort of bust out the popcorn on each other and sort of all stand there. In that situation, in a sense, there's a sense in which that would be good, because everybody would be sort of liberated then, in a way, because, you know, people talk about like the political corruption in the US and other countries, that all the politicians are blackmailed. So I think it was, what's her name? Whitney Webb has a book, One Nation Under Blackmail. So you've that, and then you've people like Conor who gets torn down by whatever it was, and the rest of it. And like I say, the likes of Banty and the rest of them, suddenly, you know, and he might be a saint, I'm not referring to him, but these gone beans They are just random people with no profile. I mean, they're a gone bean, they do their thing, they sign the contracts, but we never hear about, oh, here's his ex who he had a kid with and she's out of the woodwork and this and that, or whatever it is. Or now we do have some good stuff on the Dundrum guy, I will say that, but it's just one of those things in terms of the reputational qualifications. When people talk about Conor, that's why I'm speaking about this. He did this or he did that or he has this alleged or whatever. It's kind of like, I mean, if there's a very, very clear cut case of someone doing something hideously bad or whatever, but if there's any ambiguity at all to things, then my intuition is always to just say, yeah, I know what's going on here. Like, and it's not my job I'm not the priest, you know what I mean? So I'm not here. I'm here for politics and it's business and politics, that type of thing. So I don't know. And people say, oh, well, yeah, I don't care about it, but a lot of Irish people care about it. It's like, yeah, but they care about it because of the media, because of that process. They don't care about what, I'm going to make up a name, Seamus O'Toole or whatever, the Gombeen of Clare or something. They don't know or care about his baby mama and his this and his that and what this person and that person. They don't, some girlo on TikTok is not being like, oh my God, he did this and that and whatever, because they don't even know who he is. They don't know or care. Even if someone said Seamus O'Toole, the Gombeen of Clare, did this, that and the other, they'd be like, right, it would just go over their heads. They're like, I don't know or really care. They're made to care by the machine. And they're weaponized. Their sort of hatred is weaponized and fostered and brewed up by media, by the algorithm or whatever. So anyway, I was going to look at, I was going to kind of talk about the TikTok thing a little bit. I don't know if any of you are following that. Maybe I'm a bit late to the party, but the Garen affair on TikTok, I think it's a big platform that's sort of more active than anything else. The young people are there. The young Irish people are there. If you're not on it, you should get on it, just to kind of understand what people under the age of 30 are consuming. You need to know what they're consuming, what it looks like. And TikTok's very interesting because you notice straight away when you go on that there's a lot of like fairly hardcore anti-immigration content. And then there's also a lot of, I don't know, some black guy being like, I'm definitely Irish. I'm, or whatever, like speaking a word of Irish or making a meme out of it or whatever, like emphasizing how he's Irish. And then people in the comments saying, yeah, you're Irish, fuck the racists or whatever. You get everything. You sort of get the spectrum of it a little bit on TikTok, which means that it's, and it depends on your algorithmic preferences and all that too, I'm sure. But I don't know what sort of algorithm they have in it and how they control it. But there's definitely a more interesting and dynamic range of stuff on TikTok than on like a lot of other stuff. I'll just read out a super chat there. Anybody else who wants to work away, but no pressure. Occident Advocate, you've lost control of your destiny. Happy days. Your masters hate you and want you gone. It's genocide. You must take your destiny back. Resist for sure, and thank you. But the question is how to resist. People, it's like, okay, I'm going to resist right this moment. What do I do now? I don't know. Am I resisting now, or is this me resisting? Kind of thing. It's that's where people are sort of lost a little bit. A lot of people are against it and they want to resist. So it's almost like if you squeeze your hands together really hard and go, oh, I'm really resisting. It's nothing. Like, it's like there needs to be some sort of vehicle, path, logic to it. And none of us seem to know exactly what that is. But where was I? Yeah, so the TikTok thing, there is a dynamic thing going on there. Lots of a big range of opinion, including a lot of criticism of immigration. People are fairly based over there in general. The comments are fairly on side and all that. And of course, the content creators have, unlike the television or whatever, they're connected to their audience. They're connected to the whole web, the whole ecosystem. And so you have someone like Garen, who's this big TikTok superstar, and his brand is talking about Irish stuff, Barry's tea or joking around or making silly jokes about chicken fillet rolls or whatever. Charismatic and lovable kind of guy and all that, big figure. And others like him. They're, of course, when they're talking, like, they might not even be very political people, but the immigration question is just right up in everybody's face. It's like, it's all over the comments every second, TikTok, or no matter where you go, really, any platform, even in real life when you're talking to people, like Conor said, once you're behind closed doors, it's very hard to get away from that. Like, I mean, if you talk about, oh, the price of houses has gone crazy or whatever, yeah, that's mad. You sort of like look over it, you go, it's crazy what's going on, isn't it? Like, and with the majority of people, it's like, or someone says, have you been to town lately? Town's gone town isn't what it used to be at all. You know, all the, like, people, it's very like on the right there, bubbling on the surface and unavoidable, basically. And I don't think that's just my bias because I'm into this stuff. I think it's like just on everybody's lips a bit, and especially on social media. So eventually these, and also, of course, you go from whether it's the Dublin riots or Connor's in the White House or whatever, it's very hard to like avoid it. It keeps coming up one way or another. The latest daily scandal, the right wingers are saying this, that, and the other. The politicians, Micheál Martin, Simon Harris, all the rest of them, are constantly having to respond to it, excoriate the far right, or say, oh no, we're getting immigration under control. Whatever way you look at it, it's just all about immigration. So these TikTok stars who are having a bit of fun online, making their videos, making good money from their sponsorships and all that, eventually it's going to cross their radar and probably affects them in their personal lives as well. They see it, maybe they are affected by it, and it's on their brain as well. So for a variety of reasons, it's sort of it's always on the brink of being spoken about, but they of course know that it's a taboo, and so they're sort of conflicted on it. So anyway, for those of you who don't already know, I'm sure you do, and this is like a couple of weeks old as a story. Your man Garen, he just nicotining myself there, but your man Garen puts up a video mildly criticizing immigration, barely even criticizing it, just kind of saying it's a problem. I'm not going to get into the nuance. He was trying to cover his ass in several different ways, so it's not worth getting into. But he basically offered the most mild, barely even a critique, just saying that immigration is an issue and we need to talk about it. It's not something, there are issues and blah, blah, blah. And he supposedly got lots of abuse online and then deleted his account for a few days, went into hiding, and then came back and did another video where he sort of said, I want to clarify what I meant. I was not saying bad things about immigrants. I was just saying it's a bit of an issue. I kind of stick by that. But ultimately what it was, I assume you all saw it and you all get the gist already. What it ultimately was like a big, huge struggle session. And I don't have a big conspiracy on it, but it sort of goes to show how much pressure there is in the society, sort of from this machine, NGOs, the money, power, whatever it is, the government and all the rest of it. The fact that, take for example, somewhere like Lisdoonvarna or anywhere else, you know, or Uachtarard recently, an even better example, where you'll have a room of people who are asked to put their hands up whether they're for or against an asylum centre. And in Uachtarard, in Lisdoonvarna, it was like 94% of people. In Uachtarard, it was 100% of people. Now, one person put their hand up in favour of it. And that pretty much goes across the society. Pretty much everyone's against it in some form or another. And yet pundits on the TV or politicians just go, we are a modern economy. We need people to keep our economy going. Diversity is our strength. Blah, 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 blah. There's just such a bizarre disconnect. And such a weight where it's like, well, who are these politicians? And Conor was kind of talking about this. Like, who are these politicians appealing to? Like, who, like, if we're all sort of against this and it's obviously fucking everything up, then why are you off here on the TV? Like, why is it that when I put on the Late Late Show, I don't, but let's say I do. And if I watch 20 episodes in a row and I pay close attention and I look for even the most sideways, mildest approaching critique maybe of the immigration situation, even the most tangential sort of little nod to it, even cryptic, whatever, I could watch 20 episodes of the Late Late Show and 20 episodes of the afternoon show and the evening show and the morning show and whatever other show, right? And I could read all the magazines, the women's magazines and the whatever magazines at the supermarket checkout. All of it. Just the whole establishment. I wouldn't be able to find one single sliver of even a hint of some criticism of like immigration, despite it being on everyone's lips, but despite everyone knowing it, like as plain as the nose in their face, within the establishment, within the institutions, same way at work, you could talk. It's like you couldn't talk about that in the office. Any institutional control area at all, you can't find it. It's just a barren wasteland, despite it being this massive elephant in the room. Or not even for most people, it's not even an elephant in the room. It is talked about. It's open. We all know it, and yet a silence. That's somehow or other. That's the level of control, because of course you'll get like dragged away by a horse, effectively, in some social or personal political kind of way. If you stick your head up, people get that. We saw with John Connors, we saw with Kelly Harrington. They've shown us enough scalps for us to kind of know. And walked people like dogs across the yard in front of you with their little apology and stuff like that. That's all a ritual meant to make the rest of them understand, and understand they do. And we watch the spectacle. We watch the person get dragged out and flayed, and that's what it's meant to achieve. So again, you've all that backdrop, and then you've these TikTok stars who are sort of semi-beholden because they have deals and agents and sponsors and all that. But then, for the most part, they will actually just kind of be at home making their own videos. And they're part of a very organic community. Being a TikToker is much more sort of tactile connection with the people that you're broadcasting to than there is with like the Late Late Show or something. You're less of an institutionally integrated figure in a sense, right? And you're more organic and free-flowing. And so it's sort of this interesting test bed where you see someone like Garen kind of mildly bring it up and just say, there are problems with immigration and we kind of need to talk about it. But I've no issue myself, really, but we do need to talk about it. It's not nothing. And somehow he ends up deleting his account for days, even though lots of people support him. Just like with any other video he might make or any other contentious issue, you're going to have some people excoriating you. Some people are saying fair play. So as much shit as you actually get a better day with half the population or half the people or more. You're actually getting more credit. If anything, when he made that video, I saw more than ever. There was a huge uprising or groundswell, whatever, of support for him. People being like, brilliant, we love it. And yet somehow he still went into hiding. He came back and it had to be this sort of not an apology video, but a clearing up video with a very sort of somber tone. You have people with bots or otherwise in the comments, the sort of criticism is saying, oh no, Garen's cool and all that, but he just didn't know enough to speak on it. So suddenly there's this big appeal to expertise, right? Now again, if you go to, my screen went dead there. Yeah. If you go to someone and ask them about Conor McGregor and the case he had recently, or if you ask them about anything, they'll speak on it. They don't have to be experts, and I'll talk about that in a second. But there's this big sort of, I would describe it as a struggle session, kind of the Maoist type of thing, where it's like, just to mention a thing leads to this big, huge sort of like rocking back and forth sort of ritual among like the content creator, the Garen, and then all the people watching it. We all have to kind of rock back and forth in our straitjackets, sort of teasing over the little details or something of what he said, and not just talking about what he said, but whether he has a right to say it, and whether he's hateful or not hateful, or whether he's a bad guy or a good guy, whether he's expert or not, whether this word could be construed this or that way, and how dangerous it is that he said it or didn't. It's just like, you're kind of going, this is insane. We don't do this about anything else. I mean, we're just talking about this big prescient issue at the moment, immigration. Can you not speak about it? Like, why does it have to be some big sort of AA session after someone mentions a bit of immigration? Why is that? Like, why couldn't he just comment about it? And when some people in the comments love it, some people don't like it, he goes, well, I don't give a fuck. I'll talk about it a bit, a lot, whatever I want to do. And that's it. And my theory would be that he probably has agents. It's basically money at the end of the day. I'm not saying he's bought out, but once you get big enough on TikTok, I'm sure you have agents and the rest of it. And there's a whole world there where your money is connected to. There's a business model established, and also, just like with Kelly Harrington or whatever, there's the money first and foremost. The classic age-old, how they have you by the balls is by the money, basically. And like I spoke about a while ago, there's blackmail, there's money, there's threats. There's a few, like, these things are as modern as we are, the same things are age-old. Like, you will be targeted and taken down, bribed, tempted, or whatever by about 4 or 5 things, and they go back 5,000 years. It's the very same: money, blackmail, force, violence, threat, ostracization, whatever. But yeah, I think it's a money thing. And the other thing is too, if you're someone like Garen or someone like Kelly Harrington, one of the big things is that, like, think about you become a big star. You were sort of I'll say, someone says good night there, see you later. But if you're this kind of big star, there's some time when you weren't, and then you became this big star and everybody loves you and you've all this going on and you've brand deals and sponsorships and you get invited to this and invited to that. It's a great time altogether, right? You get your expenses paid, the whole thing. And then also your old primary school, secondary school, they invite you back and 200 kids are lined up in front of you and you're brought in like this official person, and not just your own school, lots of schools, let's say. And they bring you in and you speak to them, and all the kiddies come in and they're given their hour off their classes and they look at you like you're this big star, and it's like they're all told by the teachers to be respectful and this and that. You're thinking, this is like the maddest thing ever. I'm here and they're looking at me like I'm some big icon or something. And not just an icon online, but even within mainstream society, the purest thing, like a school, something as official and sort of a community based as that. And I'm here and they're bringing me in. That's part of it too. Is that like, well, yeah, besides the money, what if the papers drag you through the muck and you don't apologize and you don't get cleansed by your apology or whatever? No more of that. You don't get to be Mr. I go to the school anymore, or the local boxing gym or whatever it is, and everybody looks at you like you're this beatified kind of holy saint. That's a lot. There's a lot there. There's a lot of different reasons why they can take you down. And kind of make you a nobody, and that scares people, I think. And people like Garen, I'm speculating, but you could have the agent call you up and says, yeah, I know you just thought you were making a video, making a very light comment about it, but actually now this is a big serious thing. I'm recommending you take down your channel for a couple of days, and then you clarify it and you move on and you never fucking talk about it again. And then that same message goes out to all the rest of them. And so this platform that you thought was an organic thing, this is all just people on TikTok. They do their own thing. This isn't the Late Late Show. Actually, the money power and the sort of the regime power, the ability to make you a made man or make you a broke man, or have your reputation destroyed, they can sort of turn that on and off like a bit of a light switch a little bit. They're able to actually wrap their hands around people like that too, even though you would think TikTok, well, no, it's you've your own platform, you've your own audience, surely you could just say fuck it, I'll do what I want. But it's like, well, no, it's a Lucozade and Apache pizza and Guinness with the creamy points and all this paying the bills in a sense as well. Suddenly all that dries up, and the agencies and the various advertisers and all that, they have the control over that, and you're not allowed to talk about immigration. So I just want to watch your man. A little bit of content for you. The red-headed fellow, what's his name? Protein Bar. I put this up on Twitter a while ago. I just thought it was kind of funny. And then I suppose I'll let you go. I don't know. I don't know about because it's once I get talking, But I could just stay on for ages, but that wouldn't be cool. So your man, right? This guy. This is just an example. So this followed in the wake of Garen Gate. there was basically every other TikToker on the platform was replying to the Garen thing. Some of them were saying, I'm not talking about immigration, I'm just saying I support Garen. Oh, here's one of the big narratives, right? Was all the people who supported him and probably low-key agree with him on immigration and all that, what they did was they came out and they said, we love you, Garen, come back, Garen, stay delicious and all this. But they're kind of saying, I just think like he should have a right to an opinion and people shouldn't be like blasted or whatever just for having an opinion or whatever. And what's weird about it is that it's like, okay, so how are we suddenly talking about, like, does this happen with any other issue where you move from the issue itself to talking about having a debate about whether you're allowed to have an opinion in brackets, just a general sort of like blank canvas thing, like opinion. Are you allowed to have an opinion or not? We're not just talking about an opinion. We're talking about immigration, because Garen is perfectly free to say whether he prefers chocolate or blueberry muffins. So there's no question over whether he can have an opinion on something. He can have no opinions all day long. It's the question, but they're just talking about opinions neutral. So even the people who are commenting on it, supporting him, are sort of afraid to almost get into the territory itself. They're just backing off to the safe distance to go, I just think the guy should have an opinion and that should be okay. It's like, well, what about the substance of the matter? It wasn't, again, blueberry versus chocolate muffins. He can have that opinion. The opinion in question was on immigration, right? That's the question. The specific reality is on immigration. So stop talking about opinions or whether he's educated enough on it or any of this. It's like, the question is, can you be critical of immigration? And if so, what does that look like? And that is still something, even though everyone, the dog on the street, knows there's an issue with it now and everyone's suffering from it, we're still in this sort of nightmare where people feel like they all have a gun to their head. And it's just getting so fucking stale, to be honest with you, at this point. Like where it has to be like this. And every other TikToker ends up reacting to it, but they're sort of staying away from it. And no better example than this, right? This fucking idiot. And for a while I thought, when I saw this guy, he's around the scene on TikTok, right? Big account. Never really my thing, but I might have thought, whatever. If you just want to be a silly clown and endear yourself to people or whatever, that's fine. But what this guy did was he punted after Garen by saying, I couldn't talk about immigration. I'm not an expert. If you wanted your roof done, you wouldn't call a plumber. So I'm just not an expert. So didn't have the balls to say I'm for immigration, or didn't have the balls to say, well, I'm actually against it. It's that I'm not an expert, so why would I talk about it? I'm just a guy who makes funny videos on TikTok. So why would I talk about this thing that I'm not an expert in? Now, the first thing I would say about that is, you know, you don't have to be a meteorologist to look out the window and tell me if it's fucking raining or not. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can't tell me about what the clouds are, exactly what type they are, and which front is blowing in from which way and what the pressure is or whatever. But you can tell me if it's pissing rain or if it's sunny or windy and what you think of it. Do you like it raining or do you not like it raining? Are you more of a sunny day person or not? Like, it's kind of like a parrot, you know what I mean? You don't need to be an expert. If I ask you, and now I'm thinking of analogies on the spot, it's kind of like, it's like, what car do you like? You know, you could say, oh, well, I like Range Rovers or whatever. It's like someone wouldn't go, well, how much of an expert are you on cars? You go, well, I don't know. I just think I kind of think they're good or whatever. Maybe that's a worse analogy. But it's like, you know, it's just so obvious to have to say it. It's kind of difficult as one of these things. It's like immigration is one of these things that's in your face. Like, you're for or against it. You walk down O'Connell Street, walk down your town. Does your intuition tell you whether it has an effect on does it make you feel alienated? Do you think it makes the town different? Do you think the numbers are too much for housing? Obviously the prices are going up and there's fucking millions of people coming in here. Obviously those are connected. Again, you don't have to be. I would consider myself a sort of unofficial expert critic of immigration, right? Versus someone like him, but you don't need to be like that. I mean, you could just kind of have your opinion. But again, the opinion itself is under question. The idea that you can even raise your head. So this guy punts on it, which is one thing. But then A week later, he comes out, he's in Dublin with a fucking placard campaigning with Lad Bible for censorship laws in Ireland against hate. And like I said on Twitter, just that, like, within 1 week, he went from saying he's not an expert and I just want to make apolitical stuff to suddenly being an expert. And he starts defending himself, saying, no, it's not. You can have your free speech. It's just hate speech we're talking about. And I was just joking that, like, you know, if you asked him, if you said, oh, that's actually a very complex issue. I mean, immigration is probably more of a straightforward issue. It's more sort of intuitive. But the question over what constitutes free speech and what doesn't is actually a very nuanced, very political, very third level sort of type of master's degree type of level stuff. If you want to get into the specifics of, like, where do you get into, you know, when you talk about blasphemy, indecency, incitement, controversial speech, unpopular speech, you know, there's no such thing as absolute free speech, really. So the question is, what constitutes free speech, the spirit of free speech, and what doesn't? How far can you take it and all that? That's actually quite a complex, nuanced matter. So if you were to go to him and say, oh, you're pontificating, you're Mr. No Opinions, you know, you're pontificating very confidently. What can you tell me about John Stuart Mill or Milton or Voltaire or any of the rest of them? What can you tell me about the flagship sort of piece of paper on it, the US First Amendment, Brandenburg versus Ohio, all that kind of stuff, case law, Charlie Hebdo, Salman Rushdie, you name it, other examples from the East, blah blah blah. The value, like, you know, just give me, like, obviously you're an expert because you don't talk about things unless you're an expert, so give me, like, the expert thesis on what constitutes the difference between hate speech and free speech in your expert opinion. Of course, he'd look at you like you had 25 thumbs. But yeah, so I'll play the videos. It's just so, and you know what else it is about these guys, and a lot of it on fucking protest on the 26th. Roddy Murray says, will I just go through some super chats and then we'll watch your man, or should I leave it? I'll do some super chats now just as I go quickly. Finola, oh yeah, Easter 5. Thanks, Finola, and good to have you. Is that Lochrie? I don't know if I'm pronouncing the Gaeilge wrong. Gives 5. It says, Lad Bible, an Anglo website fronting a campaign in policing Irish speech, recruiting gullible stooges such as Protein Bar and co. Deja vu. Yeah, it's such a, you know, I was going to make a TikTok, right? I was going to set up a TikTok and then I was going to make this TikTok, but I'm not like a drama actor, right? You know, I just talk about politics and stuff. But I was going to do a satire that was along the lines of, it was basically taking the piss out of the Protein Bar guy, but others like him, where I was going to put, I actually have them on now, the Snickers. I was going to put on the Snickers and put the pencil behind the ear and maybe a high-vis coat as well or something like that. Looked like I'm off a site. And sort of put on this fucking minstrel show that a lot of these TikTokers do, which you can tell is totally fake, hamming up the Irish rubber banditsy sort of silly accent or whatever. And I know a lot of people have country accents, different county accents and stuff, but you know when it's real and you know when it's hammed up. And so act Mr. off the site and then be kind of like going, well, boys, and, you know, throwing in the H's and the words really strong, you know, the Hardy Bucks kind of thing or whatever. And say, like, what you call it, so the whole gig would be, well, maybe I should just make the video, but it'd be like, you kind of go, well, boys, I don't know about immigration, I don't know about any of that crack, sure, I'm not a fucking plumber, and why would I fix pipes or all this kind of stuff. So you throw in the construction site rhetoric for the lads, and then you sort of then you start veering into reading like something off the NASC website. So you go, I'm not political, lads, I just want to have a bit of crack or whatever. And then you suddenly segue into, oh, by the way, did you know gender equality and women's leadership has increased by 12% in the last year? But but we need to work harder on that. We need to drive up these numbers. That's why, and so start talking about pure agenda-laden NGO shite, slipping it in, and then you start talking about the Apache meal deal with a free Lucozade 20% off this week only, and then you say you're going to have a big creamy pint of Guinness, lads, not a shit poured one like in London, ha ha ha. And then you finish your TikTok, because that's what it feels like. That's what all the videos feel like. And they have, like you'll see now with your man, the hammed up fucking accent, which you know is totally fake. You know in private he might have a bit of an accent, but this kind of, you'll see now.
Why haven't I made a comment about what's going on in the country? Because why would I? If I say something, people will give out stink. If I say nothing.
If I say nothing, people will give out stink. Yeah, you definitely talk like that all the time, bud.
Why haven't I made a comment about what's going on in the country? Because why would I? If I say something, people will give out stink. If I say nothing, people will give out stink. What is the point? I'm a 22-year-old fella who makes videos about fitness. What the fuck do I know about immigration policies? Would you ask a carpenter to do the block work on your house? Yeah, sure, they might know a bit about it from what...
Jeez, if you had a drill and you had a fucking hammer, which one would you pick up? I don't know, boys. Do you know what I mean? You can understand that, lads, can't you, lads? Jesus.
Other lads do. But if I want a house, I want it done right. So I'm not getting the fucking carpenter to do the block work. I might see shit online about both sides, but I don't think I'm informed enough to make a decision on it and like preach it to millions of people. And I think that's like a major thing that people just don't understand. You don't need...
You know, the mix of like Valley Girl type. I think that's like a major thing. I think like, you know, it's like a mix of the culture-ing it up, but then also being like, I don't think I'm informed enough to talk about blah, 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 blah. Weird combination.
To be...
Trying to be masculine and Irish and parochial, but also feminized and sort of like robot American or something as well. Strange.
Like all the way left or all the way right. If you don't have a fucking clue what you're on about, that's fine. And if influencers want to come on here and make a point, they're free to do that too. I just personally don't want to do it. I think if everyone just tried to get on, we'd all be in a much happier place. And no, I'm not being paid by the fucking government. You daft. Fucking Egypt. Jesus Christ.
No one said you're being paid by the government. Okay, it's a bit more complicated than that. But so like, and the other thing on TikTok after this Garen Gate thing too was, it was in a way, I'm not saying the whole thing was a contrived conspiracy or whatever. It doesn't have to be like that. It just plays out. It's sort of
people give out stink. What is the point? I'm a 22-year-old.
Shut the fuck up. But you know, like that. There's a sort of a atmosphere created, and then, or like the spinning top is set in motion, and it just kind of plays out that way. It doesn't all have to be like all involved in a conspiracy or whatever. The game theory, the dynamic is set out from the top down, and the characters just play within it, is what I'm saying here. But it almost feels like some element, almost does feel like a conspiracy or something in the effect that it has, because what starts with, oh, Garen's talking about immigration, that's great. He has some critics, but a lot of us support him, and now the ball is going, and now we're talking about immigration. Let's talk about it more. Suddenly it turns into a big struggle session. And you have people being like, oh, I think he should be allowed to have an opinion, unnamed the opinion, like we won't talk about what it is. None of us will come in and go, why didn't all those people who support him, these other big TikTokers, say, oh, not only should he have an opinion, but I think he's fucking dead right about immigration, actually. I think it's a disgrace and it needs to be stopped. No, that definitely wasn't happening. It was just, I think he should be allowed to have an opinion. Who's allowing? What are we do? Where are we coming at with this language? Allowing, not allowed. We don't talk about that like that with anything else. If someone comes out when Conor McGregor had his case and says, oh, he's a bad guy, la la la, nobody starts talking about should that person be allowed to have that opinion or not. You don't have that rhetoric because the framework isn't moving in that direction, or that's not the dynamic. So it's a very peculiar thing. Only with this immigration does we start talking about whether someone should. I think he should be allowed to have that opinion. What are we talking about, allowed to have the opinion? But the other thing too was that because there was so much consternation over it for a few days, then a lot of content creators on TikTok, even the ones who sort of nominally supported him, started kind of saying, I just want Garen back to make funny videos about, you know, chocolate bars or whatever, and I just want to have fun. TikTok used to be so fun, now it's gotten all so serious. It's like there's a big black cloud. Can't we just have fun, guys, and not be talking about this and that and just have fun or whatever? It's like, well, it could have been like that. I mean, someone could have mentioned immigration, had an opinion on it, but also made funny videos. It could have been a mix. It only from, in some weird way, from the top down, was like the handbrake on the car pulled up, and then there's a black cloud sort of shoved in the window on everyone, and it's like, and now we're all talking about how we're under a black cloud. It's not even that I'm for immigration or against it. It's just that I just want to be happy again. And I saw that exact same psychological dynamic happen around towns that were being replaced with asylum, Uachtarard, any of these places. There would be this kind of thing where after a week or two, the place would just kind of fatigue from the pressure, from the amount of the heightened acidic atmosphere that was not natural to the town. It was made that way by the bringing in of Antifa, of RTE News, of the pressure of the news commentary, of the threats of who's going to get fired, who isn't, who's racist, who isn't, all that kind of stuff. Creates this negative atmosphere, even for the people who are against immigration, let's say. And suddenly everyone just wants to kind of fold and go, I can't handle this sort of psychological pressure anymore. It's just so negative or whatever. And it's like, it doesn't have to be negative. It is made like that. And it's just some sort of element of spectacle or something. I'm not saying it's a big conspiracy. I'm just saying it is definitely not natural. And that's kind of how this thing felt. A lot of people after a few days, like this guy, were kind of going, let's just have fun. Let's just forget about it all. And it's like, well, no, why couldn't you have fun and live your life and have your TikTok and have everything and be openly, as regularly as you want, critical of immigration too? And you'll have some people who are counter critics, and you'll have some people who think what you're saying is great, and you can debate it with them. And there's no big, terrible, scary black cloud. That is the bit that I think is contrived and unnatural. The fact that Garen even went away for a few days, as opposed to, no, well, I said something about immigration and I'll just keep making my funny videos. And then maybe in a month's time, I'll make another one addressing immigration again if I want to, or whatever. Maybe I will. That's like what a normal conversation would look like. Anyway, I am going on a bit. So anyway, Mr. I'm not an expert, and people give stink if I do this way, and no, I don't want to piss anyone off, and I'm apolitical, and fucking hell, I'm not a carpenter and all this. So then a few weeks later, he's seen outside the Dáil with this campaign group, sort of totally fake pressure groupy type of thing. I don't know, campaigning for fucking censorship laws. Call it hate speech if you want. It's just censorship. That's a neutral term. With Lad Bible. I'm not paid by the government. Well, Lad Bible, you're there with them. And then he goes, I was not paid by Lad Bible. I know, yeah, but you weren't paid to go for that. But of course, all these things are wrapped up in agents and deals and whatever. Like, I doubt you woke up in the morning and of your own volition sort of had the bright idea to go up to Dublin and campaign for this thing. It was part of this arrangement you're in with these, I don't know the paperwork behind it all. I would believe him when he says he wasn't directly paid to just go up and do that specifically or whatever. But obviously a lot of it's tied in with itself in some fashion or another. But anyway, yeah, so this Tico then gets heat, and then he starts like trying to bitch back on it. It's just so idiotic, and the hypocrisy was just crazy.
I think that racists...
Listen to like how much of a... Am I allowed to say the R word on here?
I think that racists, homophobes...
Like he sounds like a full-on, like 19-year-old, absolutely indoctrinated to the gills. Maybe not even like a 14-year-old indoctrinated to the gills girl. Like, where they're like, I just think like everyone should be nice to each other. And, something like that where you kind of go, okay, that's very nice. You go back and do your junior cert. You have a very, it's like it's childish sort of, like it's naive and it's sort of endearing in its own way, but obviously don't know what you're talking about. You're not intelligent. You're not grown up. This big muscle man here is kind of it's kind of disconcerting to see him talking like this.
I think that racists, homophobes, misogynists, bigots of all kinds should face consequence for their actions, which I didn't think was a very controversial opinion, but that's obviously not the case because a lot of people are giving out stink. Over the last week, I have had death threats. I have been harassed.
Classic, right? Classic. Now, like, how many death threats have I gotten? Or like, I'm coming for you. You better watch your back and all this. Loads of that stuff over the years. I would never think of posting it unless someone said like, I'm outside your gaff and posted me a picture of that, or like looking in the window at me, whatever, some real actionable sort of threat or whatever. Maybe that's a different issue, but like random sort of comments from anons online, you don't know the real source of that. That could be anyone. that could be totally fake. Like, not, it could just be like people poisoning the well sort of thing or whatever. God knows who's commenting online, who or what is commenting. Could be like literally like fake, like bots. But to weaponize that, like, I'm being harassed, I'm being targeted, that's such a classic bullshit or little regime agent thing to do, to set up his premise. Anyway.
I've had people try and put me out of work, and to be honest, I've had people just kind of try to ruin my life, all because I think there's a serious issue in Ireland with bigotry. I was asked by Lad Bible, would I go to an anti-hate speech protest? Contrary to popular belief, I did not get paid to be there. I done it under a moral obligation to myself. And it's not because I'm an influencer and I get lots of hate online. I've been at this crack.
See, here's the thing. Now, of course, we know it's divisive. Like, he would know that himself. He would acknowledge that doing something like this, half the people would think that's wonderful. You're stopping people from being hateful bigots. Why would anybody want to be like that? I mean, you know, if you've got a problem with that, then you've got a problem with yourself, full stop. Not being bigoted against people should be sort of like an obvious thing. So, like, being against hate speech is great. And then a lot of people will say, no, well, that can easily be misinterpreted, and I should believe it's controversial ideas matter and all this kind of stuff. It's obviously going to split people very strongly either way. So it's a divisive, contentious issue. And a week ago, he was saying that, well, I can't talk about immigration because half the people will be giving me stink if I do, half if I don't. So I don't want to do that, and I'm not an expert. Same applies here, but he's doing it, right? Now, I would say that he's doing it because, like any of these creators who've been making videos for years and basically marketing themselves to the public daily and getting more money, more followers, more adoration, more this, that, the other, they have a strong sense of a will to power, which is like not necessarily unhealthy. Like, if you're a young, effective person doing your thing, you have lots of fans, you're going to have women throwing themselves at you, you're going to have lads like thinking it's the coolest thing ever to come up and shake hands and talk to you or whatever, take a picture with you. Then you get the brand deals, the money, the sponsorship, the influence. You get on a bus and you see people sort of, or whatever, you walk out and you're in doing your shopping and you can see people walking by just kind of staring at you. I mean, there's an element to that most people would be like, that'd be pretty cool. Like, you know, that would make me feel very powerful. I would be more powerful than some bum who's just like nobody, sitting there, whatever, feckless, invisible, you know. So there's a will to power to that you can say what you want about it, but it is what it is. It comes from a position of strength, influence, power, dominance, all that kind of stuff, and which is fine to be like that. But for someone who behaves like that and then punts on an issue because they don't want it to affect their thing, like immigration, I don't want to talk about it, I'm going to swerve that one with a bullshit excuse, obviously. Then I will come out to the contrary of that excuse a week later and advocate for censorship laws from my perch. But then when I get it criticized for it, I will defend myself by painting myself as Mr. Holy Joe, a moral obligation to myself, It's like, stop the fucking cap, stop the bullshit. To be fair, you know, it's like, you are not some sort of holy fucking saint who is concerned about marginalized communities and all that. The bullshit. Like, if you know, do your thing, be successful, punt on immigration, but you can't have it three different ways. You know, it's just so full of shit. That's just
crack for 3 years. I've dealt with all this stuff and I don't give a fuck. And I think that anyone in Ireland deserves and has the right not to be treated like a fucking monster just because they look different than 90% of the population.
Now, bear in mind, do you remember the guy in Limerick, the kid who posted a black square? No, you're meant to post a black square in honor of George Floyd back in the day. And this other kid posted a white square and the black people were giving out to him for it. The white kid said, I was just trying to be funny or whatever. I thought I was just being sort of contrarian or funny or whatever. I didn't mean to offend you on some racial level or whatever. I didn't mean it bad like that. I'll take it down or whatever. And then he says to some black kid, sorry, didn't mean, which he shouldn't have had to do, but he goes, didn't mean it bad, sorry about that, I didn't mean to offend you or whatever, very magnanimous. Says, I'll meet you out and we'll put it there, we'll shake hands. no bad meant or whatever, peace be with you type of thing. And he goes out, and the black guy arrives with his friend, camera rolling, and he beats the shit out of him, kicks him on the floor, starts talking about 400 years of slavery, nothing to do with a black kid in Ireland, right? But starts talking about 400 years of slavery, explicit racial grievances, while kicking this guy in the face on camera. There was nothing ever made of it. I sent it with a description and explanation, and I had sources from Limerick who gave me more detail on the background of it. And I brought it to journalists, NGOs, all sorts of people, that said, will you make an issue of this, please? Because you're always talking about hate speech and hate crimes. Here's one for you. It's actually one of the most explicit ones I've ever seen, because we don't have to depend on 3 weeks previously in Cork, Adam Noonan in Cork, this teenage boy, was stabbed in the back multiple times on video by like 3 black lads. And everyone made a point of it that these 3 black lads attacked this one white lad with knives, and they said it was sort of in gangster sort of London drill fashion, or like they said it had a black thug culture quality to it, and clearly it was 3 black guys picking on one white fella. So even though they didn't mention a specific racial thing, it's sort of dripping in racial contempt and violence. And the NGOs said, well, no, you can't just because they were black and he was white, you can't just imply a racial motive where you don't have it spelled out in clear terms, which is bullshit, but that was their excuse. At least on paper, it's an argument. Now, of course, then you could say, well, what about George Floyd and Derek Chauvin? Derek Chauvin wasn't kneeling on his neck saying, you big black fella, some other type of words maybe. He wasn't saying, oh, I'm kneeling on your black neck because you're black and I don't like you. There was nothing like that. I don't think even in court or whatever there was any specific stuff came out. Certainly, so like it was like, yeah, the racial motive was implied, and sort of to the people watching it who were against Derek Chauvin felt like it was sort of inherent and obvious. And that's what it felt like in Cork as well, in Carrigaline with the boy who got stabbed. But the NGOs rest on the technicality when it suits them. Well, it wasn't explicit or whatever. That's grand. Okay, fine. 2 weeks later in Limerick, the guy says, 400 years of slavery. You posted a white square. I'm black. You're white. Like totally, literally spelled it out. The most open and shut, almost like a literally textbook version of a hate crime. Like if someone said, give me an example of a hate crime that's sort of just open, like cartoonishly, like just laid out for you, every aspect of it. It was that in Limerick. And not a word was ever said about it. A boy was kicked all over the place on the ground. No one ever said anything about it. And I did bring it to all of them. They all saw it, and they all just didn't reply, or they said, I don't know what you're talking about. So we have the case study that not just hate crimes like hate speech or hate speech, but hate crimes, literally kicking someone on the ground. It's not rhetoric. It's not bigotry. It's beating someone up. In fact, that doesn't just qualify under the proposed law that he's looking to do now, hate speech. This is law that goes back to 1989. This is old-fashioned, bog basic racial incitement, hatred, crime stuff. As straightforward as it gets. And it was just swept under the rug. So don't come to me with this bullshit about, oh, well, we just don't want people to be bigoted or whatever. It's like, well, no, you don't even know about the Limerick thing. You won't even talk about how hate crimes or hate speech could go in the other direction. You don't talk about, was it Clonee or Blanchardstown or whatever, where the black people after George and Kensho barricaded Irish people into a Centra and shouted in at them while baying like zombies at the shutter. You fucking white bastard, she said, right? Shouted through the thing. Not a peep. No Helen McEntee, no Drew Harris, no Mark Malone, no NGOs, no none of that. Nothing. So sorry, I'm bullshit, right? So that's just one thing.
There's actual crack that goes on. Like, I know you might be very isolated. Like, I live in fucking Leitrim. It's the middle of nowhere. But people who are ethnic minorities, people with disabilities, even women, get abused daily on the...
Now, here's the thing, right? People who are ethnic minorities, that's one thing. Ethnic minorities and majority, whatever, might back and forth. Every now and again, you'll get some comment. He says, people with disabilities get abused daily. Never in my life have I seen, nor have I even heard of someone let's say in a wheelchair, in a supermarket, in a shopping center, going about their wheelie business, right? Doing their thing, doing their shopping, and they have to, in any regular fashion, face someone going, "Look at you, you bastard in your wheelchair." I've never in my life even heard of some sort of targeted abuse, hate speech towards a disabled person. I would say the same for women. How many women in your life, your mother, sister, wife, daughter, friend, whatever, have said, "I was out in the shops today," and someone started saying, "Oh, you fucking woman." Like, I just don't get it. Someone might say, "I got catcalled, I got groped in a nightclub," something like that. Well, look, if the thing you have is sufficient enough, what was done to you, that would be sexual harassment. Like, I mean, you definitely don't need new laws for that. We're talking about hate speech. We're just talking about someone saying, "You're this, I don't like you," or something like that. That's the effect of what hate speech would be, you'd imagine. So it's just very bizarre to me. It's all really about the ethnicity, race, immigration agenda type of stuff. That's what it really comes down to. And this is what this is for. This isn't, disabled people aren't being shouted at in the street, nor women or any of that. It's because there's naturally going to be tensions and dissent and rancor with bringing millions of people into a country. That's just going to happen, sort of in every direction in a way. And by cracking down on one side with these laws, by like castrating and handcuffing one side selectively, not both sides, that would be a Singapore model or something, but this is worse. By just handcuffing the natives selectively, that's what all this bullshit is about. It's not about women or any of that stuff, or disabled people. He has no idea what this stuff is really for. And he has no idea about the Limerick case, about Blanchardstown, about this, that, or the other. Ultimately, the hate speech is just to get the social dialogue and the sort of daily atmosphere under lock and key, so that you can bring in millions of people and no one says boo about it, effectively. That's what it is. That's what it's not about hate or this or that. It's just about that. It's about putting the native people on lockdown, mentally, physically, verbally, politically and everything, so that you can sort of, basically they're held back behind the fence in fear with a gun pointed at them, while the other people red carpet their way in. And the people on the red carpet can throw as much rotten fruit at the Irish as they want, but you sort of can never even complain about it happening with these hate speech laws. It would be effectively migration, ethnic, sort of selective censorship. It's targeted like that, and it's got a purpose. It's not just about be nice to each other. It's nothing like that. And this guy is being used like an absolute tool, willing, useful idiot, basically. Just wants the money. I mean, he wasn't paid allegedly or whatever, but like once the success keeps flowing, we'll call it, then I suppose he'd say pretty much anything, I would hazard to guess.
The street in Ireland with hate speech and online. Protesting against hate speech is not protesting against freedom of speech. Everyone deserves an opinion, but if your opinion is to hate someone just based on stereotypes motivated by their appearance, that is terrible. You're a terrible person. If you think that having hate speech laws is in violation of your...
Like, I wonder if this guy has any idea what... Like, let's say you go down to Parnell Street and you said to, like, the Chinese people who were working there, like, what do you think of the Roma gypsies? I mean, you know what I mean? Like their opinions would make anything I'd say or think, which I love Roma gypsies, obviously, we all know that. But... their views would probably make me shocked or whatever. And then if you said to, I just always find it so funny, like, or if you said like, what do you, and the funny thing is the hate speech laws would only be directed against like Irish white men, basically. But in reality, the amount of rancor and contempt that would exist between all the other groups is mad. And the hate speech would have nothing to say on it, really. They wouldn't care. Like, your man is talking about Irish people, in effect, talking about Irish people, whether we would hate or not. Like, here's another, like, just say Roma gypsies. It's like, do you have any idea what Roma gypsies think of Irish people, just overall? Like, do they have love and affection and sort of the utmost respect and like brotherhood with Irish people? Is that their view? Do you know anything about them? Do you know their language? Do you have any access to their social environs, their conversations online, offline, what they do, who they are, any idea? And ultimately then their views towards us, or whatever. Do you have any idea about that? And does it concern you, or is the answer good, or like no idea? I had no consideration for that at all. With this it's like the multicultural thing is always like directed at the Irish people with no consideration for what the others think or their capacity to hate or have contempt or apathy for us. It's always like it's only we could love or hate or dislike or whatever the others. It's like I find that very I mean, he's just a tool, I suppose. It's the short way of putting it.
Freedom of speech, and that the things that you want to say online and or in person would violate hate speech laws, then your opinions are bigoted and horrible. I've never had an opinion that I wanted to put online publicly that I think would get me in trouble if there was hate speech laws in place.
What an idiotic thing to say. Unreal.
It's not a political issue. It's not left versus right. It's about being a decent human being versus being a complete disgrace of a person. And the fact that people are so openly racist and hateful because I think people should be nicer to people they don't know is absolutely fucking crazy. We are a country of immigrants. Ireland's main thing is getting the fuck out of Ireland. And yes, when it came to giving my stance on immigration, I did not want to give an opinion. It's not that I don't have opinions on these type of things, but I obviously have a large influence online. And I don't want to say something which is fucking factually incorrect because social media is a damaging tool if you use it wrong.
Okay, here's one for you, right? Factually correct. More immigrants, actually, I'll be very factually correct. Either more than the same amount or not much less than. Somewhere up in the region, right? So I'll be very specific. Maybe it's a bad example, but because the facts are, it depends on the stat you look at or whatever. But generally speaking, somewhere in the region, the amount of Indians that came to Ireland in like the last 5-6 years is somewhere in the region of the population of Galway City. Just Indians in the last few years, right? Is that hate speech for me to say that? Or maybe it's just a fact. What if I say I'm against that? I don't like that. That makes me uncomfortable and it's disconcerting. Is that hate speech or not? What if he says, well, what if 150,000 or whatever it is, sorry, it's called 100,000 or something. What if 100,000 Australians came? Would you feel as bad then or whatever? What if I said my answer to that was, what if my answer was, well, I don't like that many people come in because of whatever, but I wouldn't find it as bad. I wouldn't find it as disconcerting. Would that be hate speech? Because I think that. Is that wrong? Am I allowed to say that or not? Or is that something I just have to think? Even though 90% of the population would, behind closed doors or in their minds, obviously that's intuitive, right? It's no hate, but it's just like intuitive. What if you said, well, if I could live in a neighborhood with a majority foreigners or a majority Irish people, I'd choose to live in a majority Irish neighborhood. Would that be hate speech? Like, what is it? You have a problem with foreigners or something like that? You go, well, I don't have a problem with them. I just would prefer, in general, not about individual, but in general, I would prefer it to be mostly Irish people. Yeah. So I don't know. Is that exclusionary or is it just having a preference for what's familiar? I don't know. Like, where are we talking? What's allowed? What's acceptable normal speech and what's hate? Like the examples I mentioned there would be very on the margin, right? I mean, am I hating there or am I not hating? Like, does it pass like the certain rev counter where it becomes hate? It starts out as an opinion, becomes into like, where is the line there? Because I'm pretty sure if you said, yeah, I don't like loads of Indians coming to Ireland. I don't mind an Indian or another Indian or whatever here or there. But like, look at loads of numbers, I'm uncomfortable. And I'd be less uncomfortable if it was Australians or Germans or whatever. I might not love it, but on a sliding scale, I'd be less uncomfortable, etc., etc. Like, I don't know. To me, like under the classic version of what can be deemed like under like liberal progressivism, that should be hate, surely, like because you're differentiating and you're whatever. So again, all bullshit.
Wrong. And it's an abuse of power.
I've had enough. Do you know what? I'll leave it off. I'm kind of harping too much on it. Someone says Ginger Tosser, not talking about you, Gerard. Thanks for clarifying. But yeah, I might wrap it up there. There's loads of things I could talk about. Like and I'm not gonna, but I really want to talk about economic stuff. You know, I don't know if any of you have been following this Gary's economics guy. Kind of good, but he sort of maintains that immigration is not an issue and whatever. But a very good economic critique, very interesting, and just the transfer of capital from the like lower and middle classes to like these strange high places, and how that works and whatever. Just what's going on in Ireland is so fascinating, sort of economically in a sense. Like even there's, and I won't start getting into it tonight, but like, what is it, like 60%, or is it more? Whatever, some high number, right, of Irish young people aged like 19 to 25, or again, I don't know the parameters exactly. Younger people in Ireland, in a majority numbers, are now saying that they will just go on social housing, which is just mad. The radical nature of that situation is just off the wall. Like the idea that the housing market, the situation has gone so sort of tits up, even though it is according to plan. But the idea that it's gone so demented, and so sort of, because the like international capital and the governments are so captured, and the whole thing is just for this rapacious profit and all that. It's gone so far and so out of control that a majority of young people under 30 or whatever, people who don't yet have a house and will be looking to get one, looking to live a life, be alive, have just kind of thrown in the towel and said, literally, the only way I can do this is to be on social welfare, like on social welfare, on the dole, you know, basically play whatever game I have to do, work a bit, not work, whatever it is. But like my only path is to just basically lay down and just have the state, whenever they get around to it, take care of me. Because the idea that you go, well, I'll get a job and I'll get a mortgage, or I'll save up, or whatever it is, and then I'll buy a house and I'll move into it when I'm 28 or whatever. Somewhere in that process, I get married and we have 2-3 kids, and you know, I mow the lawn, and then I go to work, and then I live my life. And what for a long time we've considered like the bare minimum of normal society has totally caved in, and younger people have gotten the message, and that's where we're at now. There's loads of other metrics where it's gone absolutely crazy, and it's part of this like major reshuffling of I don't know, society is just hitting this sort of weird crunch singularity type of moment, and it's there's a lot to say about it, you know. And these conversations aren't happening in the media. It's just mad. You know, it's kind of crazy that like these interesting things are being said on X and on TikTok and stuff like that. But if you put on the Late Late Show, you will see Mary Kennedy and Mary McAleese literally talking about nothing. And Pat Short, God love him, singing the Breakfast Roll song. It's just so disconnected, like that. There's nothing of substance in the mainstream, we'll say, and yet there is so much to say, you know. And that's what I'm looking forward to maybe doing in some other streams. Anyway, look, good to touch base with you. I've some super chats to read. Where was I? We have James Bond 20. Thank you very much. Says, God gave his only son to die for us this day. God bless you, Garrod, and all who follow you. Yeah, Easter's quite a special time, isn't it? Do you know what? I'm going to think about it tonight. I know that sounds sort of vapid, but you know the way it's just Good Friday or whatever. You do your thing. If you're not like extremely pious and devout and all that stuff, it might just kind of get lost on you. So I'm going to think about it all. Thanks for the super chat. Roddy Murray 2 and says, reminder lads, protest on the 26th. Indeed, thank you. Armchair Limerick Nationalist 5 super sticker, thank you very much, sound. And Roddy again 5 says, Lad Bible would celebrate the Irish language and Cayley, but can't understand that importing a billion gajillion Indians will end both of those things. Yeah, I didn't know they've celebrated the Cayley and all that. Yeah, it's just how it is, isn't it? It's like Irish wool. You can have Irish cucumbers. You can have local Irish charcuterie or whatever, all this kind of stuff. Irish textiles, whatever, all premium, all sort of very vaunted. But apparently you can't have Irish people. Native Irish trees, native Irish species, native Irish coral, I don't know, whatever. What's native, what isn't. This tree isn't native to Ireland. This plant came here 100 years ago. But if you say, yeah, what about Irish people? Like, I mean, they start telling you, what are you talking about? There's no such thing. Sure, it's a blend of all sorts of. There's people came 5,000 years ago, and this and that and the other. Paul McGrath. Suddenly, it's obfuscated into oblivion. There's no such thing. But it's good for. But it's fine for the wool, or chocolate bars, or whatever it is. Maybe not chocolate bars. Anyway, yeah. So I'll be back again for more streams there. I might try and get a guest on or something like that. But thanks for joining me tonight, and take it easy. Ihoa. See ya.